If you only look for a few seconds, you might simply see a bird. But watch a little longer, and you may discover an entire struggle for survival unfolding right before your eyes. A tiny movement can mark the beginning of a hunt. A moment of complete stillness can be the best way to avoid detection. A single beat of a wing may reflect millions of years of adaptation. And what makes this world even more remarkable is that most of these stories happen incredibly fast. So fast that we often walk past without ever noticing them. Out here, no action guarantees success. A hunter may return with nothing. A shelter may have to be rebuilt. A young bird may fail on its very first attempt, but life continues. From hunters in the sky to birds that almost disappear into their surroundings. From tiny architects to young birds facing the outside world for the first time. These are 200 moments from the world of birds, where just a few seconds can reveal a story far greater than we imagined. In the wild, even the smallest action can have a purpose. A bird may pause before moving, change direction without warning, or remain in one place far longer than we expect. To us, these moments can seem insignificant, but every movement uses energy, and every decision carries some degree of risk. Flying requires fuel, searching takes time, and exposing yourself in the wrong place can attract unwanted attention. So survival is often a balance between action and restraint. Move when the opportunity is worth it, wait when it is not, and conserve enough energy to face whatever comes next. What looks like hesitation may actually be caution. What looks like inactivity may be part of a strategy. In nature, doing nothing can sometimes be just as important as doing something. For birds, movement connects almost every part of life. The ability to fly opens a world that most animals can never reach. Food may be found above the ground, beneath the surface, among branches, across open water, or many kilometers away. But flight is not simply about moving from one place to another. It is about controlling speed, direction, altitude, balance, and timing, while the air itself is constantly changing. Wind can help. It can also become an obstacle. A safe landing place can disappear in seconds, and a journey that seems effortless from the ground may require continuous adjustments in the air. The sky may look empty to us. For a bird, it is an environment filled with invisible forces. The world experienced by a bird is not exactly the world experienced by us. Height changes perspective, speed changes distance, and senses shaped by different evolutionary pressures can make certain details far more important than they appear to human eyes. A movement that we barely notice may immediately attract attention. A distant shape may contain information we cannot recognize. Even the position of the sun, the direction of the wind, and the movement of vegetation can influence what happens next. Every animal lives inside its own sensory world. And when we watch wildlife, we are seeing only the outside of decisions made using information we may never fully perceive. In the wild, a meal rarely comes easily. Some birds depend on speed, others rely on precision. Some watch from a distance, while others wait patiently until the gap between themselves and their prey becomes small enough for a single opportunity. But even strategies refined over countless generations cannot guarantee success. Prey can change direction at the final moment. Distance can be misjudged. One movement made too early can destroy an opportunity that took a long time to appear. We are naturally drawn to perfect moments. A successful hunt, a precise strike, an approach that seems almost effortless. But nature rarely works that way. Behind every success may be many failures. And in the wild, failure is not unusual. It is simply part of being alive. There is no time for regret, and no reward for giving up. There is only another observation, another adjustment, and another opportunity to try again. Speed captures our attention. Patience is easier to overlook. Yet for many birds, waiting is one of the most important skills of all. An opportunity cannot always be chased. Sometimes it has to be allowed to come closer. Minutes may pass with almost no visible movement. The bird watches. It listens. It waits. Then, in a fraction of a second, everything changes. This contrast is one of the defining rhythms of the natural world. Long periods of stillness can be followed by sudden bursts of action, and the success of those few seconds may depend entirely on everything that happened while nothing seemed to be happening. Nature is often shown through moments of success. But success tells only half the story. A missed opportunity can reveal just as much. Animals cannot predict every movement around them. Conditions change, targets escape, wind shifts, branches move, and decisions made in an instant are not always correct. What matters is what happens afterward. A bird that survives a failed attempt still has another opportunity. It can search again, wait again, approach from somewhere else, or abandon the situation entirely and conserve its energy. Survival is not about winning every encounter. It is about succeeding often enough to continue. Every action in nature has a cost. Searching for food uses energy. Defending a place uses energy. Building uses energy. Courtship uses energy. Raising young can demand even more. The challenge is not simply to gain resources. It is to gain more than is spent obtaining them. This invisible calculation shapes countless decisions. When to move, when to stop, when to defend, when to retreat. And when an opportunity is simply not worth the effort, we may never see this balance directly, but it is present behind almost everything an animal does. In the wild, safety is rarely absolute. A high branch may reduce one danger while creating another. Dense vegetation can provide cover, but it can also limit visibility. Open ground makes threats easier to see, yet leaves fewer places to hide. Every location comes with advantages and costs, so animals constantly make compromises. They choose places that are safe enough. They remain alert while feeding. They interrupt rest to look around. And they react to changes that may seem meaningless to us. Survival is rarely about finding a place where danger does not exist. It is about managing danger well enough to continue living beside it. But survival does not always mean being faster than your opponent. Sometimes, the best strategy is to make sure your opponent never realizes you are there. Nature is filled with colors, textures, shadows, and irregular shapes. Over time, many birds have become remarkably difficult to separate from the environments around them. But camouflage is about more than color. Even perfectly patterned plumage can fail if the bird moves at the wrong moment. So posture matters. Position matters. And sometimes, the ability to remain completely still is more valuable than the ability to fly away quickly. A bird does not need to become truly invisible. It only needs to make the eyes searching for it hesitate for a little longer. In the constant contest between seeing and being seen, those few extra seconds can sometimes determine who survives. There is no perfect bird. There is only a bird adapted to a particular way of living. A feature that provides an advantage in one environment may be useless somewhere else. A body built for speed may sacrifice maneuverability. A structure specialized for one kind of food may limit access to another. Every adaptation comes with trade-offs. Evolution does not design animals from the beginning. It modifies what already exists. Generation after generation, small differences are tested against the realities of survival and reproduction. The result is the extraordinary variety we see today. Not a collection of perfect creatures, but countless different solutions to countless different problems. A small body does not necessarily mean a simple life. For many birds, being small means losing heat quickly and carrying only limited energy reserves. That can make every meal important. Periods without food become more costly. Cold conditions become more demanding. And long journeys require careful use of energy. Yet small size also brings advantages. It can allow access to narrow spaces, delicate branches, or food sources unavailable to larger animals. Once again, nature offers no single ideal solution. Every body size creates its own opportunities and its own problems. Few groups of animals occupy as many different spaces as birds. Some spend much of their lives high above the ground. Others remain close to the forest floor. Some depend on open water. Others move between several worlds in a single day. This flexibility has allowed birds to occupy an extraordinary range of environments. But every habitat demands something different. The skills needed in open air are not the same as those required among dense branches. Life beside water creates different challenges from life in dry landscapes, and each environment has shaped the behavior of the birds that depend on it. The environment itself is always changing. Light moves across the landscape. Wine strengthens and fades. Water rises and falls. Temperatures shift. Vegetation grows, dries, breaks, and returns. Food that was abundant yesterday may be difficult to find tomorrow. Animals cannot stop these changes. They can only respond to them. Sometimes that means changing location. Sometimes changing behavior. Sometimes simply waiting until conditions improve. Adaptability becomes one of the most valuable abilities in a world where nothing remains exactly the same for long. Birds do more than adapt to their environment. Some actively reshape it. A blade of grass, a leaf, a piece of mud, a small twig. Materials that seem almost insignificant can gradually become structures capable of protecting an entirely new generation. There are no blueprints, no hands, no construction tools in the human sense. There is only a beak, a pair of feet, and hundreds of repeated actions. And the process is rarely perfect. Materials fall. Wine shifts what has already been placed. Something that seemed finished may need to be repaired or rebuilt. So the bird returns. It gathers more material. It makes another adjustment. And it continues. What is remarkable is not only the finished structure, it is the hundreds of tiny decisions required to create it. For many birds, a suitable home is not simply somewhere to rest. Location can influence temperature, protection, access to food, and exposure to predators. A few meters can make an enormous difference. Too exposed, and danger becomes easier to approach. Too hidden, and entering or leaving may become difficult. Too low, and one set of threats appears. Too high, and another challenge may take its place. Choosing where to settle is therefore part of survival itself. And once a location has been chosen, maintaining it may require constant work. The environment never stops changing. Neither can the animals living within it. For a long time, humans tended to judge intelligence by standards that looked very much like our own. But nature does not require every animal to solve the same problems. For a bird, intelligence might mean remembering where food was found before, recognizing that an object could be useful, changing strategy when the first approach fails, finding another route when the familiar one no longer works, or simply stopping long enough to observe before trying again. A solution does not have to be complicated to be remarkable. In nature, what ultimately matters is whether it works. And intelligence often becomes most visible when something goes wrong. Try, fail, adjust, then try again. These small actions remind us that intelligence does not come in only one form, and humans are certainly not the only animals capable of solving problems. Not everything a bird does has to be learned from the beginning. Some behaviors emerge through instinct, but instinct does not remove the value of experience. A young animal may possess the basic behavior needed to survive while still lacking the precision of an experienced adult. Timing improves, coordination improves, recognition improves. The animal becomes better at responding to the details of its environment. This combination of inherited behavior and individual experience creates something far more flexible than either one alone. Nature provides a starting point. Life provides the practice. The natural world is filled with communication. Some signals travel through sound. Others depend on movement, posture, color, or position. A raised feather can matter. A change in stance can matter. The distance between two individuals can matter. And the same signal may mean something completely different depending on the situation. To human observers, much of this communication passes unnoticed. But for the animals involved, these small signals can influence territory, courtship, cooperation, warning, and conflict. The forest may seem quiet. The shoreline may appear peaceful. yet information is constantly moving through the landscape. Then comes a time when priorities begin to change. Food still matters, safety still matters, but another challenge appears: finding a mate. This is when the world of birds can become extraordinarily vivid. Feathers rise, wings spread, bodies change posture. Colors that seem ordinary from one angle suddenly become brilliant from another. Some displays last only seconds. Others are repeated again and again. To human eyes, these behaviors may appear beautiful, strange, or even difficult to understand. But none of them evolved to impress us. They are signals exchanged between members of the same species. A language of color, movement, posture, and sound that existed long before humans ever stopped to observe it. Sharing an environment does not mean sharing its resources equally. Food, space, nesting locations, and potential mates can all become limited. But competition does not always lead to physical confrontation. Sometimes a display is enough. Sometimes a call establishes presence. Sometimes one individual simply moves away. Direct conflict can be dangerous, and injury carries a serious cost in the wild. Avoiding unnecessary confrontation can therefore be just as valuable as winning one. Nature is competitive, but survival often favors knowing which battles are worth fighting. Finding a mate is only the beginning. Ahead lies one of the most demanding periods of a bird's life. A suitable place must be chosen. A territory may need to be protected. Food must be found. And when a new generation finally arrives, the rhythm of life changes. These tiny lives cannot yet fly, find their own food, or understand the dangers waiting beyond their shelter. For a while, their survival may depend almost entirely on their parents returning. Leave, search, bring food back, then leave again. The cycle can continue from morning until evening. But the goal is not to keep the young dependent forever. It is to prepare them for the day when their parents can no longer do everything for them. A new generation represents possibility. It also represents an enormous investment. Every journey for food carries a cost. Every return to a nesting area can reveal its location. Every hour spent protecting young is time that cannot be spent somewhere else. Parents must balance their own survival with the needs of offspring that may demand more each day. And those demands continue as the young grow. More food, more space, more movement, until eventually, the safest strategy is no longer to remain protected. The next stage of life requires leaving that protection behind. Eventually, that day arrives. The boundary between safety and the outside world must be crossed. But growing up does not mean instantly knowing how to survive. A young bird may have wings, but that does not mean it has complete control over flight. It must learn to take off, to turn, to respond to the wind, to slow down, and even to land on a place that seems simple to an experienced adult. Then comes the challenge of finding food, recognizing danger, choosing the right moment, and making decisions that were once made by its parents. The first attempts may be awkward, but nature does not demand perfection on the first try. It demands something much simpler: survive long enough to have another chance. Independence cannot be learned without risk. At some point, young birds must begin doing things they have never done successfully before. They must move farther away, explore unfamiliar places, recognize food without having it delivered, respond to danger without waiting for a parent, and make mistakes without always being protected from the consequences. This transition can appear sudden to us, but independence is usually built through many small attempts. Confidence grows through experience. Coordination improves through repetition, and gradually, behaviors that once seemed difficult become part of everyday life. Not everything a bird does has to be learned from the beginning. Some behaviors emerge through instinct, but instinct does not remove the value of experience. A young animal may possess the basic behavior needed to survive while still lacking the precision of an experienced adult. Timing improves, coordination improves, recognition improves. The animal becomes better at responding to the details of its environment. This combination of inherited behavior and individual experience creates something far more flexible than either one alone. Nature provides a starting point. Life provides the practice. Perhaps this uncertainty is what makes the wild so fascinating. No one knows exactly what will happen in the next few seconds. A hunt may fail, a bird may suddenly leave, a display may end without warning, or nothing may happen at all. Nature has no obligation to provide a spectacular moment every few seconds. Most of life happens quietly, waiting, watching, resting, adjusting feathers, balancing against the wind, saving energy for the moment when it will truly matter. Those ordinary moments are part of the story too, and they are what make the unexpected moments feel extraordinary. There is no perfect script, no guaranteed outcome, only living creatures responding to a world that is constantly changing around them. The most dramatic moments are the easiest to remember, but survival is mostly built somewhere else, in ordinary moments. A short rest, a careful look around, a few feathers being returned to position, a small change in posture, a decision not to move. None of these actions appear spectacular. Yet together they occupy far more of an animal's life than the brief moments of action we usually notice. Wildlife is not a continuous sequence of dramatic events. It is a continuous life, with dramatic events appearing only occasionally within it. Understanding that makes the quiet moments worth watching too. No single moment can represent the entire world of birds. There are too many environments, too many strategies, too many different ways of finding food, avoiding danger, communicating, reproducing, and raising young. What works for one species may be impossible for another, and that diversity is exactly what makes this world so fascinating. The same basic challenges of life have produced an extraordinary variety of answers. Different bodies, different behaviors, different rhythms, different solutions. Yet beneath all of those differences lies the same fundamental requirement: to survive long enough for life to continue. "200 moments represent only a tiny fraction of these birds' lives, but place them together, and a much larger story begins to emerge. It is a story about finding food without becoming food, about knowing when to move and when to remain still, about shelters created through hundreds of small actions, about competition, courtship, raising a new generation, and eventually learning to survive independently. Every species has found a different path. Some rely on speed, some on strength. Others depend on patience, camouflage, precision, or adaptability. There is no single perfect strategy for survival. There are only solutions shaped by different environments and tested across countless generations. So the next time a bird appears nearby, watch for just a little longer. Don't only notice its colors. Watch how it stands, how it observes, how it responds to the wind, how it uses its beak and feet, and how it continues after something goes wrong. Because behind an action lasting only a few seconds may be a story shaped by millions of years of evolution. And sometimes, the greatest wonders in nature are not found in the biggest moments. They have been right in front of us all along. We simply don't always stop long enough to see them. Perhaps the greatest lesson in watching birds is not found in any single spectacular behavior. It is found in the persistence behind all of them. Life continues through success and failure, through changing seasons, through difficult conditions, through first attempts and repeated mistakes. Every generation inherits a world it did not choose and must somehow learn to survive within it. And every ordinary day becomes part of a much longer story. The birds we see today are connected to countless generations that came before them. Every flight, every search for food, every shelter built, and every young bird beginning its own life continues that story. 200 moments can never show us everything, but they can remind us how much is happening around us all the time. The sky above us is not empty. The trees are not still. The wetlands are not silent. Life is constantly watching, moving, adapting, and beginning again. And sometimes, all we need to do is stop and watch.